was that guy? Oh, Piers he dreadful, rearing his ugly head again. Don't listen to him. So, I'm glad to be back. It's been a little while, as usual. But the winter is over, at least on this side of the world. We are now in the spring season. And this is when leaves will be back and the spring flowers will be blooming, doing it whatever it does. So the weather should be getting warmer, and kind of looking forward to it. So as much as I like wearing hoodies and sweatshirts and all that stuff, it's nice to not have to worry about needing it, and I can wear shorts again, and all that good stuff. So this video, it's a bit of a, I don't know if it's a response, more of like a reaction. So Lee at the channel, Lee G, I don't like saying his last name. It's a little difficult for me and most of us. But Lee G at the Heavy Art Talk channel, and who does all things related to art with metal art. A big part of how we make purchasing decisions. When we make purchasing decisions, we take all these different elements besides just the music, right? But the packaging and the art in of itself has a big appeal. And I think for a while I thought maybe that's not such a huge thing for a lot of people. But what's been the hot kid topic lately? It's been the AI art issue for a lot of people. And it kind of reoriented the fact that people do care about that shit. And want really good album art, and they want their shit to be organic, and real. Made by real humans. It's like the same way you wouldn't want your music to be done by a robot. Yes, there's electronic music and things like that, but still done by human as far as that element of creativity. But as far as the album artwork, we want to know a real person was behind it, in some way, shape, or form. We want the thing to just look good too, and not to, I don't know, just synthetic. I don't know if that's the right word. But anyway, so for this video, I decided to do something kind of cool. And again, in response to Lee, he's had Mark Riddick on. They did a live stream. He has all kinds of cool people come on board, and they talk about stuff related to all matters of art, besides just the illustrations, composition, what things that draw the eye, and whatnot, and just things about the business of getting into illustration. So, as you guys know, I do graphic design, and you probably could tell a little bit with some of my noodling I do with my videos. But anyway, I decided to throw my hand at this and just do some select picks of albums and just kind of have a little bit of fun. So the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to do some pair-ups. So I'm going to pair two albums that have something kind of similar about them, whether it's a color scheme and whatever it is, and it kind of just talk a little bit about why I think they went the way they did with certain album directions. So some of these albums will be very, very familiar to you guys, and not all of it's metal. Most of it is, but not all of it's metal. So plug time. If you are a physical media collector, you got to go to the Heavy Metallurgy over at the By Noon store. I will leave a link. Get yourself one of these Collector Scum t-shirts. Essential. Another reason why I'm wearing this too is because I will be showing a Napalm Death album. So to commemorate this, why not? So yeah, so then there's that. And lastly, my good friend Melissa. As you guys know, I had a birthday during the week. She got me this snazzy card. Very conspicuous. Happy birthday. Well, happy born day. She calls me Ricky. So all good. But then when I opened it up, this happened. Yeah, she rickrolled me. Way to go, Melissa. You got me good. So, I'm hoping that YouTube does not flag me or because I just played that track. It would suck to lose this video because of fucking Rick Astley. We shall see. Hopefully it skirts by. If not, I have to edit this part out. That would also suck. Anywho, let's get on with it, and yeah, and just talk about a few things. So hope you guys kick back and enjoy a little bit of what I have to say here. So if you like what I did, you're also free to do your own response reaction to this. I didn't do this as meaning to be a thread, but if you want to make it a thread, you're more than welcome to, of course. So yeah, let's do this. Okay. First pair up, I got Autopsy, Severed Survival, their debut album, and then I got a King Crimson. I guess in the court of the Crimson King. So as you can see, the color schemes are very similar. We got a bit of a, I guess, kind of a pinkish skin, and we got a kind of a flush red. I guess, yeah, with just a lot of tension and high emotion. Along with this one, I mean, if I was getting fucking cut up by saw blades, there'd be high emotion too in me. Very Hellraiser-esque, if you ask me. What's interesting is I see these two albums very much essential. As far as if you are a death metal connoisseur or death metal head, and you kind of look into get into albums that kind of kick things off for a lot of people. I wouldn't say Autopsy are the biggest pioneers of things in death metal, but this is definitely the type of album that a lot of people who were getting really early into death metal could go back to this as one of the cited albums that got them into death metal. To begin with, one of the albums. So, but to me, Chris Riford and company put out a banger here, and to this day holds up. Very hard to beat, I'd say. But band's still around, still putting out really good stuff. And then we got in the Court of King of the Crimson King. God. So this one's a gatefold, wraps around, and so both albums convey pain, tension, strong emotion, very different ways. This one right here kicked off what we call the modern prog rock era. I think around 68, 69, when this thing dropped, a lot of rock was bluesy and very psychedelic, and then when Greg Lake and Fripp and company came in and, put out this masterpiece, kind of set a template for a lot of bands kind of going forward. But when you look at this, it does not need much wording on the cover. This right here, when you walk by in the record store and see this, you're going to want to check it out. This is like, what is that? What is that about? You know what I mean? So very iconic artwork. Along with this, using these very color schemes, which again conveys a lot of emotion with this intention, like I mentioned. Really good stuff. As far as this, and I love how they have the, I don't know if they didn't have a proper logo yet, so they just decided to incorporate it in meat over here. So very interesting. So again, walk by the record store, you see this, it's going to call your attention. And I think the colors have a lot to do with it, and the look on their faces. So I thought it would be a very good pair up. Very different kind of albums, very different kind of bands, very different eras, but nevertheless, you see some similarities here. All right. Okay, here we have two 80s, I guess, hard rock albums that kind of verge, kind of tease the line of heavy metal. Some people will kind of dub these bands as heavy metal, others more hard rock. But either way, both have kind of an appeal to a similar kind of audience, even though they're from different sides of the world. So we have a Chrome Molly with their album Angst. I believe this is the third or fourth album, something like that, put out by IRS Records. I think they were on another label at the time, but by the time they dropped this, IRS kind of took over. And if you guys know, IRS was not a very good label to be on at the time because distribution just sucked in general. But they were able to put out a hit through this and get on the charts. I know that Thanks for the Angst was like the big single off this. So there is a music video if you're curious. And then we have a band out of LA called Keel, K-E-E-L, Ron Keel, which is I think named after him right here. And this is I think their third album, and this is The Final Frontier. There's a Winger album that kind of looks like this too. And we have this guitar, So what is the pairing with this? As you can see, this is chromed out the shit, man. I mean, literally chrome's in the name. You got Chrome Molly. We got all this chrome going on over here. Chrome was the thing for the 80s, man. Chrome was everywhere. And man, it still looks kind of cool, but you can tell it's kind of dated. This is not something that you see quite a lot anymore. Strong reds, strong blues. Maybe Transformers had a lot to do with it. It's just vehicles. But But yeah, so Keel were a band that were kind of a response to what was going on in the LA scene at the time, with Motley Crue and you know and just and Guns N' Roses and you know and whatnot. And this band had a, I guess you could, which had moderate success. You know, it didn't chart as heavily as some of the other bands you might know at the time. This right here, so Gene Simmons kind of took them under his wing, and I think this is the second one he's worked with them. And then trying to remember, yeah, produced by Gene Simmons. So you know, by the mid '80s, you know, Gene Simmons had his hand in a lot of things. Was a lot of producing work, working with a few bands, and this was one of them. The interesting thing about this Keel album is that it's got a cover on it, "Because the Night." Yeah, "Because the Night," with the Patti Smith song, which was also written by Bruce Springsteen. For those of you who didn't know, and you think it would sound really, really terrible, you know, but it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. So this was one of the singles that was pretty popular on from this album. So if you're curious, there's a music video for it, and they kind of rock it out. But you know, if you don't like the song, then you're not. This is not going to make you like that song. Over here, Crow Molly, another great rocking band. They're more of a traditional hard rocking band rather than kind of going for that element of a little bit of a glam and sleaze that Keel was teasing over there. These guys were more of a straightforward rock band. Really good catchy tunes. And these are two bands that had their heyday in the '80s, and by the '90s they kind of disbanded, and then later they had a reunion. So I believe they're both still active as of today. I've not really followed up, but Chrome was the big thing. And this right here, it didn't need a whole lot as far as composition goes. Interesting thing with the lighting and going on to kind of accentuate that chrome. And then over here we had Keel. The album before this too was pretty chromed out. The only thing that's kind of interesting about this is you have the logo here, and then you have the logo again in the fucking middle here, kind of flying out there. And I'm like, you know what? You don't need the logo twice. This would have worked perfectly okay without this here. They should have just kept this, removed this, because it's kind of redundant, if you ask me. And this one's kind of a little overly simple in its own way. This one's too much with that. So yeah. All right, next. Okay, let's do some reds and greens. When I think of red and green, I think of like apples. You know, when it comes to the springtime and you know fruits coming to bloom. As far as this part of the world, and let's start with Cosmic Church, which I talked about before in this channel, and Gentle Giant, Octopus. So this is Cosmic Church's last album before they decided to disband the project. Tatermis, it's finished. It means fulfillments, which is fitting for you know, for a final effort. And then Gentle Giant over here, which a lot of you guys know, it's kind of progressive 70s rock. I think this is about third or fourth album. And I know they put out a similar album the same year, Three Friends, and this is during a streak of just amazing albums that they put out since their first one and through one after another. Amazing stuff. So if you like your classic prog rock stuff, this is definitely one to definitely check out if you haven't. So Octopus and Cosmic Church both have a central red character to kind of lean you in. The thing about my copy here is that it's very faded. The actual original pressing of this has a much stronger red, much more saturated, that will kind of fit a little more in line with this. So it will appear more fitting. But in this case, you kind of have to go with this copy. You know, but it plays fine. You know, despite the fact that it's faded. It is an old album, 1972, I believe. So yeah, and with this, as far as the composition goes, the octopus is kind of offset in the side here, so it's kind of strange. The rest of the octopus is over here to some extent, but it kind of makes me wonder that the artist had a long kind of I guess canvas and painted the octopus somewhat closer to the middle. So by the time this was pressed on this record, and kind of folded in half here, the octopus ended up being sort of positioned off center here. But the off center, this always bothered me. It doesn't seem very intentional. It's just kind of matter of factly, just because of where the the artwork landed by the time it got put on this 12 by 12 grid here. And and the arm there doesn't do a whole lot for me. So not my most favorite one. There is an alternate cover to this album. This is just one version of it, but this is the one I do see a lot of. And there's the one with the octopus in a jar. Cosmic Church. Now this one's a lot more fitting. Doesn't need a whole lot to be said. This is a very eclectic listen as far as black metal goes. Cosmic Church is not in every person's black metal kind of black metal. It definitely commands a lot of your attention. And I could probably argue that Gentle Giant is also kind of the same way. If you're just into regular traditional rock, you're trying to get to progressive rock, there's an element of patience that's required. I think both albums require a certain element of patience to really digest and really get into these kinds of sounds. But the old classic Red kind of central figure to pull you in the middle there is something that's been done quite a lot on a lot of album art. I also noticed that there's a bit of a kind of a misty element to give it kind of an open, airy feel to this. And then when you look at this one here, you have the sort of the kind of the water and the mist from the waves, and there's a lot of open space over here too. So there's not a whole lot of distractions going on here. So in a lot of ways, there's a lot of similarities with this. Again, very different albums, but at the same time, they're going kind of for the same kind of goal. I just think that with this one here, there was a bit of a compromise just because of the way the original painting was done, and the octopus was positioned off center. But I think that just by that chance, I think that today this wouldn't happen. I think digitally this could be easily moved and manipulated, but at the time when this was put together, it probably would have been very expensive. But yeah, here you go. Okay, so I got two death metal bands out of California. So we did the red and the green. In this case, the green's more of the central figure, with the red kind of around it. So kind of flip it around. So we have a Exhumed, and this is a Death Revenge, and we have Deeds of Flesh, Unbreeding the Anthropophagy. And yeah, so this is their second album. It's a band from Los Altos, California. And so yeah, Eric Landmark, who was in this band, since passed away, but he was involved in forming Unique Leader Records. So this was his band. And Exhumed, who's still active today, and Matt Harvey's band. And man, so these guys, Deeds of Flesh is more of a brutal death metal band, whereas these guys are more of a death grind kind of act. But if you look at it here, the goal is kind of the same. So you got the red logo, and you have the sort of very sharp edged kind of serif thing going on here, which is very fitting and kind of brings that element of danger, extreme, and just cutting, I guess, kind of character to the feel and shape of the lettering here. Deeds of Flesh is the same way. So we got the hand drawn look to it. Both have really good logos. I love the logos on both of them. And again, both hand done illustrations. No AI here. The real deal. And as they both use kind of a green to kind of pull you in, it kind of has the red kind of bordering it and kind of lower your eyeballs towards the middle there. Both are centered, but if you noticed, both albums have kind of an enclosing border. So it's surrounded by a black stark border enclosing the illustration and the shape. So we got Exhumed in a circle, kind of pulling you in there. And Deeds of Flesh in a square, although there is a physical drawn border there. This guy, I guess his bones. And yeah, and we have red. So we got splatters of red going on here to give it sort of a bit of a peppering. And then with Deeds of Flesh, you also have the red going on there and a little bit of cannibalism going on. And yeah, so they both kind of serve the same kind of function at the same time. Very interesting being that both come from California, I played kind of extreme music, and I think the artists were kind of thinking alike when it came to this. So I thought very, very interesting. So yeah, so there's another one for you. Okay, so this is the last set of the, I guess, the red and greens. Two very, very different albums. But I thought it was interesting that they both had a kind of red border around them. The first one is an 80s, I guess, new wave synth pop kind of act, rock group, The Cars, Heartbeat City. So this is a gatefold. So the whole art actually looks like this. So it's got this nice red border around with the thin black kind of stroke around it. And then we have a band out of Canada. This was actually one of my albums of the year for last year. And the name that people hate to say, Antifaxith, out of Canada, with Hive Mind Narcosis, right here. So we got here we have the red. So they both kind of have this red going on enclosing the art. This one has a thin gold border around it, which is more appropriate for this art. Which this one has the black, which would be more fitting with this theme. Both have floating objects and characters here. Very old painting. And here we have the sort of the girl with the car and the gears kind of floating all around there too. Interesting how this is sort of a interesting coincidence there with, you know, this going on along with the red border. So yeah, what's interesting about this too is that, you know, they both have very different approaches as far as the music. This right here, if you guys know that, the Faxes are very dissonant and avant-garde. It's a kind of black metal. It's also not for every kind of black metal listener. This requires a lot of your patience. It wants to punish you. It's very haunting. So I can understand if you're not into it, why you wouldn't be into it. I completely get it if it's not your thing. Whereas the Cars, and it's completely 180. You know, it's not the same genre, of course. But this right here, it's a very, very accessible album. Meant for radio, very easy to listen to, very easy to get in. Like put on anytime. In my eyes, I think this is the last real great Cars album. You know, after this, they put out one more album. It was the last album with Benjamin and Rick together. And Benjamin ended up passing away in the late '90s from cancer. But the Cars managed to put out one more album with Benjamin. But soon, you know, again, it was past their prime. Rick has passed away, and was, you know, so the Cars are no more. But this is the last of the really great albums, streak of albums that they put out. And you know, they were well into the MTV era. So I think it's '84 when this one dropped. This right here was last year, 2023. But yeah, good stuff. Very interesting direction with the art and kind of things floating around and closing everything in a red border. So yeah. Okay, let's do the good, the bad, and the ugly. In this case, the ugly. So we have another one with strong reds, but this one's more of on the purple side and more purple than blue, really. There's a little bit of blue on one here, but so yeah. So this is Voivod with Angel Rat, and we have Black Sabbath's Born Again, and as you can see, both very fucking ugly albums. You look at this, you're like, what the hell's going on here? You know, it's like, this is the kind of albums that when they dropped and you're looking at this as a record store, you're like, why? And yeah, so and they both use that sort of really high contrast posterization, recolored, right, kind of stuff, gives that really ugly look. And they both use classic fonts. So you can look at this over here. You know, Voivod uses sort of this Carnival kind of classic kind of font here, and then Sabbath again with this, you know, old English classic. I don't know what you call that, but it's you know, very old fashioned. You know, this one right here, you know, when it dropped, Sabbath were in a very peculiar time. You know, I think after Mob Rules, they trying to figure out the direction. You know, Dio left the band, and this is the only one with Ian Gillan on vocals. So again, they have a very interesting discography. It's just the band in general. Regarding everything, I mean, there's some good stuff here. You know, it just took a little time for it to be appreciated. Some people just completely do not like this album, whereas others felt like it's a bit of a hidden gem that people just don't visit often enough. But this cover, man, will kind of steer you away at times. Like, it's so ghastly. You know, I think with Voivod here, this was also another kind of disruption kind of album. When this dropped, you know, the band was going through a lot of turmoil and this was my introduction to Voivod. When I first became aware of Voivod, it was around the time when this album dropped back in the day, and so I didn't have an opinion, when it came to the sound. I always thought they were very strange. For a lot of longtime fans who were into this group before this dropped, they were more. I mean, they were always a very very strange band, but this right here was not as strange. I guess you could argue it's a little more accessible. It had a more of a commercial push to it, which disappointed a lot of people. But to my ears, in my young years at the time, again, I didn't have an opinion. I didn't know what to think. But even then, I thought this was very strange for what it was. So yeah, so this is the record store day copy that came out in 2022, I think it was. So it's been out of print for a long time. But so I'm glad to have a copy. As ugly as that cover is, they both kind of use that red, but in this case, the red's central, kind of like the other ones I've been talking about. Like they kind of reel you in with that really ugly baby. Whereas here, the red is not actually like a figure. It's more like an element in the background. They kind of tie it in, because if this red wasn't here, this logo would stand out too strong. It'll throw out the composition. So the red in the corner, and this kind of anchors it here with the red, and you kind of have the red in the button to kind of just keep everything together. It's still not my favorite album. It's just not very eye pleasing, just in general. The artists try to work some things out, but and also when you look at this, it's really hard to know what they sound like if you never heard of this band. Like, what the hell's going on here? What the hell? It could be a prog rock album for all you know. So yeah, two very ugly albums, kind of used in a similar color scheme to go. In this case, they got the yellow happening here. That's kind of another color, whereas Voivod kind of went for the green here, though it's not as pronounced. There you go. Okay, I got two with a similar color scheme, and both are not metal, but I thought it'd be interesting tie-in. One has a really really boring cover, and one has a very interesting cover. So I pulled the Alan Parsons Project. So this was their first their debut album, and it is Tales of Mystery and Imagination, Edgar Allan Poe. Being that they're a act out of the UK, they decided to debut the album based on a character from Philadelphia. So yeah, hits close home to me, and right off the bat, concept album. It kind of implies that this, being Alan Parsons, covered all kinds of themes and concepts throughout them. They did like iRobot and a bunch of other stuff. Right out the gate, it implied that this was a darker project. It was going to be a darker project overall, by the mere fact attaching Edgar Allan Poe to this. Alan Parsons just came out of the, he was an engineer, worked with Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon not too long back when it came out. The Dark Side of the Moon came out in '73. This dropped in '76. He kind of wanted to strike it out on his own with Eric Wolfson. So interesting kind of a bandage wrapped around here. It kind of as far as Edgar Allan Poe, a lot of his stories involved a lot of entombment, right? Being enclosed, telltale hearts, and being bricked in the wall. And he wanted to kind of incorporate an art direction that kind of suggested being wrapped around. So there is an alternate cover to this. This is the alternate cover. There's another cover that's much simpler than this, but this was my preferred cover here. So there's Mr. Parsons himself, and the other one is Billy Joel, The Nylon Curtain. And if you look at it side by side, you look at the text there. It's kind of, you got the red with the well, not the red, but the brown with the yellow or beige, I guess you could say, with a bit of the blue there. And here we have the blue with the beige here and black. So yeah, this dropped in '82. There's Mr. Billy Joel himself, and very well into his career, very successful. Put out quite a few string of hits. I think by him putting out an album cover like this, he didn't think it was going to be much of a a damage to his sales. Being that he had this reputation, but I don't know how much of a decision he was involved, with the album cover. It has one of his best songs, Allentown, in here, which is again one of those artists that I do appreciate. Has done a lot, but man, that cover just sucks. It's just not much going on here, not much to really sink your teeth into. You know what I mean? So yeah, you have kind of this going on. And what's also interesting too is, you got two bearded guys. Look at that. They almost look kind of similar at the same time. Look at that shit. Yeah. So it's kind of interesting. This one here was, fun fact about this album is Arthur Brown appears in this. Arthur Brown does the Telltale Heart, I believe, and the Raven. The Raven, I think, is the one that has the vocoder. This is the first album to use a digital vocoder on the big mainstream album. So at the time it was kind of a new technology, and of course none of them better than Alan Parsons to pioneer that kind of thing, incorporate it into his sound. So yeah, Brown, Spage, interesting, boring, but it is what it is. Uh, it's the music that matters, right? So there you go. Okay, I got two heavy metal albums here, very similar themes and colors. So we got Sabir with Gates Ajar, and this is a band out of now Australia. I believe they were at Europe at some point and ended up moving. And then we have Eternal Champion with Ravaging Iron. So if you are let's say sensitive, you may want to turn away. But here you go. So yeah, so we got a prominent woman figure in the middle there, and two figures. So here we have a guy, I guess it's put out of commission there, and here we have a woman that's, I guess, taken prisoner, and we have creatures. So here we have a dragon in the background, and here we have a couple of pumas, panthers, something like that, a couple of cats. So interesting. They're both kind of enclosed in the black border around, and the border itself here is using red and yellow. It's kind of very, very ornate and very well done. And here the border is actually done on the actual logo. So we have the red and yellow happening there with the snake. I kind of like the fluidity of that. I love that logo. So it's very curved, which kind of works with her positioning there. So she's kind of as you can see, kind of curved here, kind of works with the logo, because she is kind of centered. She's a little off centered there though, because we have the torch over here, kind of pulling her a little bit off center there, keeping things kind of interesting. So while she's moving this way here, we got the panther kind of moving down this sort of diagonal there. So very interesting composition going on here. So yeah, so Sabir, this is the only full length they've put out so far. So we'll love, this should be due for another drop. It's been a little while now. This band plays a little more on the school of a little more on the sleazy side. Think of a kind of Motorhead kind of meets Wasp with a little bit of a traditional metal kind of thrown in the mix. Very interesting band. Love the track Rise to the Top. Very catchy, quite an earworm. And Ravaging Iron, Eternal Champion. So, YouTube, do not flag me for this. These are chocolate chip cookies. Okay, do not take down my video. So, yeah, just so people know. So anyway, yeah. So this one has skulls in the background too, and you're going to be looking at this and go, well, where's the skulls here? There's no skulls. There's a helmet there. The skulls is in the back. Look at that. There you go. They did not forget. But yeah, I mean, I don't need to say too much more about this. It's pretty obvious why I kind of picked the two here. As you guys know, Eternal Champion, members of Summerlands. If you like Summerlands, you would definitely dig this. Definitely kind of in that vein. So very catchy. Both albums very, very catchy. Can't go wrong with either. Fucking amazing listens. So yeah, cool color scheme, cool themes and characters and objects and things happening kind of in the background there. So there you go. Here's an interesting one. Actually, this was a late pull for me, and wasn't really seeking this one out, and I just happened to notice a certain kind of coincidence. So we have a band, Daiichi, with their second full length, which is just self-titled. So again, a very cool project out of Japan. Very catchy black metal to me. Has a bit of a black and roll vibe to it at times. So this one has the kind of a prominent blacks going on here, with kind of a purple hue with green, kind of on the horizon line here. It kind of draws you in here, and then your eye kind of tends to go there. You don't tend to look right towards the middle right away, because it's just such a strong element of contrast here, and just bright. And then we have a band of a different kind of genre. So we have I guess you could call a new wave synth pop band, Berlin, who are not German, by the way, with their Love Life album. So here we have the same kind of thing going on with the purples, the kind of green horizon line, kind of what we had here, both on top, in the way kind of incorporated, prominent black, and kind of a similar color scheme going on here. We have the dark solid orange going on here. Nothing quite like that here, but we do have kind of a warm tone, with a bit of hues of orange kind of going in there, but not too strong. Your eye tends to gravitate towards the beauty of Terry Nunn over here, but right away then you start to notice the colors here. The colors have such a contrast to it that the font itself had to be kind of condensed and brought in a little thin, just so that it wouldn't overpower the image. Being that how strong the color schemes are and how saturated it is. As you can tell here, it's very saturated also, but very interesting comparison. Yeah, the big single off this was Normal Words. Cool song. Check out the video. It's kind of done in this sort of Bonnie and Clyde kind of fashion, you know, kind of old what do you call it, Model T kind of era. They have a song here called Pictures of You. So this dropped in '84, and little did they know that there'll be another song called Pictures of You, put out by the Cure in Disintegration. It will kind of also hit the charts. But yeah, there you go. Two very different bands, two very different listens. But if you happen to have both in your collection, you are a very open-minded listener. Let's just say that. Okay, wanted to end this with some bangers for you guys. Two long-running bands. So picked one very classic album and one more recent album, and both use very, very similar color schemes. And so you all know Authors of Madness. How to go with this one. And very iconic death metal album, essential if you are a death metal fan. This is their debut, the first one that dropped, though they had material already done before this album dropped. Authors of Madness, kind of another one to set a template for a lot of bands kind of moving forward on extreme death metal at the time. So band out of Florida, and don't need to say all too much. Should be in your collections. Look at these guys. Look at that. Look at that. Man. Yeah, and then we have The Throes of Joy in the Jaws of Defeatism. And so this is the latest full length by Napalm Death, dropped in 2020. So they should be due for another full length. They did put out one EP after this, but come on, we need another full length. What are you guys doing? So this is death grind done the right way. So as you guys already figured out, color scheme pretty obvious. A lot of purples going on there. Red. The red is interesting how it's tied up here in the blood, and here we have it in the text and the Morbid Angel logo. And composition wise, here it's pretty evil looking, a little cartoonish in a way at the same time, but it's all done dead center. The Morbid Angel logo I think works pretty well on the side here. It wouldn't fit on top here anyway, but I like that bit of that offset kind of rotated form that's there. Text here, very basic, but I don't think they're trying to draw too much attention to the text. They really want you looking at this image, which is quite busy, which is very intentional. Very, very, very cool stuff. Yeah, Earache. Yeah, they were both well, the Napalm is this was put up by Century Media. I don't think they're longer on Earache. Yeah, and here we have interesting. So the bird is technically centered, but it's kind of offset. Because we have the bird heads offset here, and the body kind of contorted over here. kind of being held that way. Unfortunately, poor bird. But this is I think in my mind a modern classic. This right away, I know when this dropped, I mean, it showed that Napalm Death was still had it in them and did not lose form. But very interesting comparison considering two classic bands kind of went for the sort of color scheme. It works, it doesn't fail. This definitely kind of is very eye catching, in its own way. But both have kind of stuff going on in the center, but has enough offset positioning to kind of keep things kind of interesting at the same time. So there you have it. This was fun. I could have kept on going and just pulled more stuff. But you know what? I'll give you guys a chance. If you find stuff in your collection and you want to do a response and maybe talk about composition, why you think it draws the eye, why does it grab your attention? Maybe you could note something that you saw at the record store and you picked it up. Maybe a blind buy and what made you buy it. Something about the cover. So I think Lee, if you're watching, I think something that you might be interested too. If people decide to get involved and do a response or something like this, and kind of just see how people are learning and picking up more appreciation for the artwork in these kind of channels. So yeah, so I'll stop blabbering, and spring is here, so I got a couple more things going on. I do plan on putting out a Good Friday Easter video. It seems like I'm the only one in VC that cares about doing anything like that. I just feel like there's a bit of a void there, it's kind of filling in the gap. Why not? And a few other things that I do have in the works. A couple things in the collection. Some what you call response videos to kind of talk about some commentary stuff that's going on in the VC. So a few things that I have kind of in the forefront of my mind that I do want to do as far as content goes. So not to keep things too quiet here on this channel. But I hope you guys enjoyed it, and catch you on the next one. Keep it dreadful, and I am out.